Hey Defenders, welcome back. So in the last video, we installed our Wazuh manager and made our appropriate configurations to enable some of our vulnerability detection, loaded our advanced rule set. And in this video, we are going to focus on installing the Wazuh agent. So this is the agent that gets deployed onto all of our endpoints, whether that be Windows, Linux, Mac OS. The Wazuh agent supports a wide range of operating systems, which makes it perfect for our needs. So in this video, we are going to install our Wazuh agent and connect it to our manager on a Linux and a Windows machine. And we are also going to take it a step further by tacking on Sysmon and Packetbeat, which we'll discuss a little later on. So stay tuned and let's go ahead and jump into it. So for those that want to follow along, I have uploaded a blog post, which I will link down in the description below. So our Wazuh agent is going to be the guy that is collecting our logs from our endpoints and sending them to our manager. It does some other stuff such as file integrity monitoring, some of the vulnerability scanning, but perhaps maybe the biggest benefit of using the Wazuh agent is that we're able to collect logs from our endpoints. And this can be system level logs, application level logs. We can pretty much ship any type of log we want to our Wazuh manager and build Wazuh rules on top of that for detection and storage within our backend, which makes it super powerful. It's the classic saying within the kind of software agent world that it's lightweight. Wazuh, for the most part, is very lightweight. The caveat that you need to consider is when you're doing your file integrity monitoring. There are a few modules such as the real-time scanning and the WHO data that can bog down your endpoint if not configured correctly. So that's really the only threat you face with your Wazuh agent, potentially consuming too much CPU. But outside of that fact, I have never had a problem with Wazuh consuming too many resources on an endpoint outside of the FIM module. So something to consider there. In terms of the installation, it's pretty straightforward, and Wazuh actually provides us a single line command that we can run on our Linux and Windows boxes, which is super convenient. You could, of course, bake it into your own Kickstart scripts if you'd like as well, which I would definitely recommend doing because we're going to want to bundle a few things on to install with our Wazuh agent onto our endpoints. So the process will go as follows. Our Wazuh agent is going to first have to register with the manager. So when our Wazuh agent first starts, it'll reach out to the manager on port 1515 and say, hey, I would like to register with you. Now, in the last video, we configured registration to the Wazuh manager via password authentication. You can also do cert auth as well if you would like. But what this will then do is the manager, when it says, okay, I'm going to let this agent register with me, it will then generate a client key that it will pass to the agent. And this is going to be a symmetric key that the manager and the agent are both going to keep a copy of. And that's the key that they'll use to encrypt the traffic going back and forth between the endpoints and to our manager. And then once that registration piece is done, port 1515 is now out of the picture. The logs will then be sent over port 1514 to the Wazuh manager. So more than likely, you have a firewall in between your endpoint devices and your manager. You'll more than likely need to make some firewall rules to allow both of these connections to be established. So to save your headache troubleshooting later on, I would make sure that these firewall rules are implemented on the endpoints themselves and then whatever actual network devices you have in between the source and destination. So here you can see this is just a Netstack command that was ran. Let me actually zoom in so that's hopefully a little easier to see. That shows that our manager is listening on ports 1515 and 1514. And the processes that are listening on both of those. So auth-D refers to our registration when the Wazuh agent registers and gets the client key from the manager. And then remote D is the process that's listening to all of the logs that it is collecting. All right, so now let's actually get into our agent install. So if I jump onto my Wazuh web app here, I'll go into Wazuh, I'll go into agents, and then here we will have our screen to deploy a new agent. So it's really nice because they'll take the Wazuh app will actually take your inputs that you put in these text boxes and generate your command, which is pretty convenient. So let's first go ahead and deploy it onto our Linux box. And this is going to be a Debian 11 agent. So I'm going to select my appropriate operating system. So I'll select my Debian/Ubuntu. I'll then select my architecture. We will then point to our Wazuh manager server address. So this can be I would definitely recommend a domain name. If you're an MSP, or even if you have agents that you want to collect these logs from, maybe within different data centers, right? So if they're not all within the same data center, you could publicly host a domain name to resolve that domain name to the IP of your Wazuh manager. If you're using a load balancer in front of your Wazuh managers, you could of course, point to that as well and let that guy handle passing the requests off to your managers on the back end. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but I definitely recommend going the domain name approach. All networks, of course, are different, and every organization has their own kind of challenges and network topology. So whatever fits your use case the best, you have multiple options you can take here. So in this instance, I'm just going to set it as the IP address of my actual manager. Let me go ahead and make this bigger here. And if I can get my command right, go ahead and copy this guy and paste that there. I'm going to select the agent group. So I have my two groups. I have Linux and Windows. If you don't have these, follow our part 3 video where we configured our Linux and Windows groups so you can get caught up to speed. So I'll select Linux there. I'll go ahead and show my password. And this is just a password of please subscribe. We also set this up in the last video as well. So what's convenient is that, we're getting our single line command that also includes some of the deployment variables like the Wazuh registration password, the Wazuh agent group. So these will all be set to the agent at its first run, which is nice. So we'll go ahead and copy this guy. I'll go back to my Wazuh agent. I will paste this guy here. And what this is going to do is reach out to Wazuh's repo where they hold their packages and grab our .dev package and then installs our Wazuh agent. So now all we need to do is actually start our agent. So I'll go ahead and copy this block here and paste that there. And it's going to do a daemon reload. It's going to enable the Wazuh agent to start at boot time. And then we are starting the service. And now if I just open up our var/sec logs, osec.log, we should see that, okay, we got our valid key received. So this block here is part of our registration process when the agent first starts up. So we got our valid key from our manager. And if we scroll down a little bit, we see try and connect to server, then we get connected to server, then our process has started. So, okay, so that's all looking good. So it looks like our agent has now connected, and we can verify this by refreshing. And now we see our agent has popped up in our list here. So that's looking good. Now let's deploy it on our Windows endpoint as well. So I'm going to go ahead and select deploy new agent again, just select Windows. Going to paste the IP address of my manager. I'll select the Windows group and I'll go ahead and copy this command. And what I'm going to do is on my Windows endpoint is open up PowerShell and run this as an admin. And I'm going to paste that in there and hit enter. And then the last piece is I then need to start the service. I'll go ahead and put that in my copy buffer. All right, and now let's go ahead and start it. Oh, I didn't give it enough time to actually finish. All right, looks like that started. The Wazuh service is starting. Okay, cool. All right, so now Wazuh has started. So now if we go back to our agents here and refresh, we see our Windows guy. Never connected yet, but that should change here within a second. And all right, there we go. Our agent is now active and connected to our manager. So that's great. We've now installed our Wazuh agent on our Debian 11 endpoint and our Windows endpoint. So that's looking good. But now let's kind of take it to the next level. So by default, our Wazuh agent, if we open up our event viewer here, it's not able to collect kind of all the insight that we need for a true EDR solution, right? So right out of the box, we're collecting our Windows logs, and well, yeah, we can get these security logs here that'll detail us like user logins to the box, but we're not collecting network connections, what processes are being spun up and by what users, any PowerShell commands, right? So while deploying the Wazuh agent is a good start, what really makes it powerful is that we can bundle it with other services like Sysmon, like PacketB, like OS Query. So we can piggyback off of these other services and use our Wazuh agent to collect the logs that these guys are dumping onto our endpoint and send those to our manager for collection. And then that's really where the true power of Wazuh comes into play. Let's first focus on the Sysmon side. This is not going to be a video that's dedicated to Sysmon. You can think of Sysmon as like your Windows logs on steroids, essentially. There's a lot you can get into with Sysmon, but that'll come in time with another video. So I have put together a script for you guys to be able to actually run on your Windows endpoints as well, to get you started with running Sysmon on your endpoints as well. I'm picking back off of this Olaf's repo. I'm not going to try to say all that because I'm probably going to butcher that name. So go ahead and check out his Git repo, but that is where I'm pulling our Sysmon config file from. So you do have to, during the install of Sysmon, you need to point it to a configuration file that contains your Sysmon rules, essentially. So we're telling Sysmon, hey, what do we want to monitor? And this guy has put together a good config file. Swift on security also has a really good one, but you can, of course, also tinker with these to fit as you need. So, all right, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy this guy. I'll open up PowerShell here. I'm actually going to open up the ISE so I can actually paste in the whole script here and not have it break on me. So really quickly, we are first downloading the sysinternals suite, which has Sysmon bundled inside of it. There are some other potentially dangerous binaries within here, such as psexec is one that I'm remembering off the top of my head. So do feel free to create your own zip file that only has the Sysmon 64 binary if you'd like. So just kind of a heads up there. But we'll then grab our config file here, and then this script will take care of the rest for us. So go ahead and select our play button, and then I'll give this a sec, and then we will have Sysmon installed. All right, so our config file is looking good. Sysmon started. All right, and it looks like we are all good to go. So now if I open up Event Viewer, if I go into Applications and Services, drill down into Microsoft, into Windows, and then scroll all the way down here to Sysmon, we are now getting our Sysmon alerts starting to come in. So that's looking good. We see a few file creations, registry entries, image loaded. So now we're getting a wealth of information. Just a basic example here. If I ping sockfortress.co, which is going to, of course, invoke a DNS request. So if I go ahead and refresh, we see our event 22, which is our DNS query, and we see our query name out to sockfortress.co. So now we are getting a wealth of information as to what activity is going on our endpoints. And Sysmon is a great service. I can't recommend this enough for monitoring your Windows endpoints. So now that Sysmon is installed, we need to tell our Wazuh agent to go ahead and grab these logs, because as of now, they're just writing to our event viewer, and we need to instruct our Wazuh agent to collect these Sysmon events. So all we have to do is copy this local file block and input it into our group, into the group that the agent is assigned to. So if I copy that and head over to our Windows group here and go into management, I'll go into groups, I'll select my Windows, and I'll select the pencil here to edit this group. And I'll go ahead and paste the local file block that tells our Wazuh agent to collect our Sysmon logs. So if we look at our path here, we see the log name is Microsoft-Windows-Sysmon slash operational, which is going to be the path we're instructing our Wazuh agent to collect these logs from. And the log format is event channel. So now once we save this off, the manager is going to tell the agent on our Windows endpoint to go ahead and restart, and that's going to load our new config. And now our Wazuh agent is going to collect these sysmon events and send them to our manager so for our own storage and analysis. We will be able to now visualize these events through Kibana. We still haven't done our Graylog input yet, so if you are like following this series literally video for video, don't fret as to why you're not receiving logs yet. We will tackle that in the next video, which hopefully I can not have to wait a week to do. Hopefully I can get done like over the next few days. So stay tuned for that. But you will see that we will now start to collect our sysmon events. And if you're also missing these events, check out our advanced rule set Wazuh rules repo. That is a public repo for you guys' use. And that'll come bundled with all of our sysmon Wazuh rules that we configure so that our manager can actually detect on sysmon events. So I highly recommend checking that out as well. We kind of zoom back out. So we got sysmon configured on our Windows endpoint. Another good example is PacketBeat. PacketBeat will analyze network traffic that is hitting our endpoints within real time. And sysmon is already taking care of this for us on the Windows side, but on the Linux side, PacketBeat is a great network analyzer that outputs in JSON format that we can bundle up and send to our Wazuh manager. And JSON is probably the best type of log format to get to our stack because it's the easiest to parse through and it just makes our lives a lot easier. So I love JSON. I wish everyone followed that, but unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. So let's go ahead and now deploy PacketBeat on our Linux endpoint. So go ahead and copy that and go onto my Linux agent here. Now let's just create a bash script here. Let's call it please subscribe. I will paste that in. So that all looks good. Convert it to an executable. Go ahead and clear that out. And now let's go ahead and run it. So this is going to install PacketBeat for us and then also load it with our config file that we have hosted on our Wazuh Advanced Rules GitHub hosted here. So you can go ahead and check that out for yourself if you'd like as well. So PacketBeat should now be installed. So if I go ahead and look at our PacketBeat service, we see it's active. We see it's running. And now we have configured PacketBeat to, as part of the YAML file that we grabbed within the Stock Fortress repo, we are instructing PacketBeat to output to temp/PacketBeat and then this PacketBeat file here. So if I go ahead and tail this PacketBeat, you see the network connections that are happening on my Linux endpoint in real time, which is super cool. If I duplicate a session over, you see we're triggering some network connections. Let me just ping stockfortress.co. Let's do a grep for that. Here we see our login tree. Right, so pretty sweet. I see our DNS requests out to stockfortress.co, and we are collecting that with PacketBeat. So PacketBeat is the actual service that is collecting and then writing this to our log file. And what we use our Wazuh agent for is to collect that log file and send it to our manager. So this isn't the Wazuh agent, looking at our network connections that are going in and out of the box and seeing, oh, hey, he made a DNS request to stockfortress.co. This is not that. We're able to take advantage of other services that fulfill our needs that the Wazuh agent can't do. We then use the Wazuh agent to collect up those logs on our endpoint and send them to our managers, which makes it super, super flexible, right? That's probably the best benefit with the Wazuh agent. There are, of course, other tools out there to do this, like FileBeat, WinLogBeat. So there are other solutions out there, but I like sticking with Wazuh agents for my endpoints the best. So we're now getting PacketBeat to write these to our local file on our server, but now we need our Wazuh agent to collect these guys, to collect this log. So I'm going to copy this local file block and take that over into my Linux group here and select the pencil. And And I'm simply going to paste that there, save, and now our Wazuh agent, our manager is going to tell our agent to restart with this new config file, and we'll now start to see these logs start to come into our stack. And we'll be able to visualize them within Kibana, Grafana, whatever visualization tool you like to use. We will use Grafana, but that will come in later videos. So that's going to wrap it up for this video. I wanted to quickly show you guys how to install the Wazuh agent and then how we can combine Wazuh with other services to get even more insight into what's going on in our endpoints. And it doesn't stop there. We can use our Wazuh agent to collect Nginx, Apache, Mod Security, MySQL logs. So we can also collect logs from other applications that are running within our environment for even further insight into what's going on, which I would also highly recommend, and which makes Wazuh a perfect EDR agent. So that's going to wrap it up for today's video. I appreciate you guys hanging out with me, and I will see you in the next one.